Have you ever had someone walk out of your life, leaving you broken, confused, or even betrayed, only for them to return as if nothing ever happened? Maybe it was a partner who ended things abruptly, a friend who ghosted you, or someone who caused deep emotional pain, but now suddenly acts like they miss you. Why do people come back after hurting you? What is their true intention? And more importantly, how should you respond? Most people get caught in a dangerous cycle. The moment someone from their past reappears, emotions flood in. Maybe you feel relieved that they're back. Maybe you think, this means they've changed. Or maybe you start doubting yourself. Did I overreact? Was I too harsh? Should I give them another chance? This is where people make a critical mistake. They assume the person's return is a sign of love, growth, or fate. But more often than not, their return has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. The truth is, people don't come back just because they love you or because they've become better versions of themselves. There are deeper psychological reasons behind why they return, and those reasons often have nothing to do with fixing the pain they caused. If you don't understand these hidden motivations, you risk falling back into a painful cycle, where they come and go as they please while you're left picking up the pieces. But if you do understand them, you gain power, you gain clarity, and most importantly, you gain control over your own peace. In this article, we'll uncover the real reasons why they come back after hurting you. We'll also break down the Stoic relationships approach to handling their return, so that no matter what they do, you remain in control of your emotions, your boundaries, and your life. By the end of this, you won't just understand their behavior, you'll know exactly what to do about it. Let's begin. 1. A test of your character. When someone who hurt you comes back into your life, it's easy to think the test is about them. Have they changed? Do they truly regret what they did? Are they coming back for the right reasons? But the real test isn't about them. It's about you. It's about your growth, your emotional strength, and your ability to stay grounded despite external disruptions. Most people don't realize this. They focus on why the person is returning instead of recognizing that their own reaction to this moment is what truly matters. And this is where so many people fail. The moment an old connection is rekindled, emotions flood in. Nostalgia makes you remember the good times. Loneliness makes you consider giving them another chance. Unresolved wounds make you crave closure. Your mind spins in circles. Should I forgive them? Were they truly sorry? Am I overthinking this? The confusion can be overwhelming, and that's exactly why this is a test of character. This is not just about whether they deserve another chance. It's about whether you have grown enough to respond with wisdom rather than impulse. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control others. We can only control ourselves. Their return is an external event. Whether they've changed, whether they regret their actions, whether they want to make amends, these are all things beyond your control. But what is in your control is your response. The true test lies in whether you allow their presence to disturb your inner peace or whether you stand firm in the emotional growth you have achieved. Ask yourself, does their return align with my healing, or does it threaten it? This single question can reveal more about your personal progress than anything they say or do. Many people react emotionally when someone from their past returns. They see it as fate, as a second chance, as an opportunity to rewrite history. But this thinking is dangerous because it places your emotional well-being in someone else's hands. It assumes that their return is a sign of growth, when in reality, it could just be a sign of their own internal struggles, guilt, loneliness, or even boredom. If you are not careful, you can be pulled back into a cycle of emotional turmoil, giving them control over your happiness once again. And that is the last thing you want. When someone returns, one of the most important things you can do is pause. Instead of reacting immediately, create space for reflection. Why are they returning? What do they truly want? More importantly, what do you want? Are you considering letting them back in because it's what's best for your peace? Or are you allowing unresolved emotions to cloud your judgment? Too often, people think they must respond quickly, that they must decide right away whether to accept or reject the person's return. But this urgency is an illusion. There is no rush. Taking time to assess the situation from a place of clarity is one of the most powerful things you can do. Another critical mistake people make when someone returns is thinking they need to hear them out. But ask yourself, do you truly need closure from them, or have you been capable of giving yourself closure all along? Stoicism teaches us to seek strength from within, not from external sources. If someone coming back into your life has the power to disrupt your emotional stability, that means your peace was never fully internalized. True growth means reaching a point where their presence or absence no longer dictates your state of mind. Here's the harsh truth. Sometimes people don't return because they love you. They return because they want to see if they still have access to you. They want to know if you are still emotionally available, still affected by them, still willing to let them in despite everything they did. This is why their return is a test, not of their character, but of yours. If you have healed, if you have grown, if you have built a foundation of self-respect and emotional resilience, then their return will not shake you. You will not feel the need to prove anything. You will not seek validation from their presence. You will simply recognize the situation for what it is, an external event that does not define your worth. Many people believe that allowing someone back into their life is a sign of strength, of forgiveness, of maturity. But true maturity is not measured by whether or not you let them return. It is measured by whether you can remain unaffected by their presence. You do not have to prove your healing by reopening a door that was closed for a reason. Sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is letting go, not with bitterness, not with anger, but with complete detachment. So what should you do when they come back? Instead of getting caught up in their words, pay attention to your own emotional response. Are you tempted to respond because you still feel a sense of attachment? Do you feel obligated to give them another chance, even if you know they haven't changed? Are you hoping that this time things will be different? These are signs that you still have inner work to do. Stoicism teaches that the strongest person is the one who does not need external validation to feel whole. If their return makes you question your own healing, that means there is still growth to be done, and that's okay. But it's important to recognize it. At the core of Stoic relationships is the principle that your peace is non-negotiable. No one should have the power to disrupt your emotional well-being unless you allow them to. If their return shakes you, if it makes you feel confused, if it pulls you back into old patterns, then the real work is not in deciding whether or not to let them stay. The real work is in strengthening your own foundation so that no matter who comes or goes, you remain unshaken. Think about the strongest people you know. Do they allow the return of someone who hurt them to dictate their emotional state? No. They remain firm in their boundaries, their self-worth, and their sense of peace. This is the mindset you must cultivate. This is what it means to be truly free. Their return is nothing more than a moment that will pass just like all others. Whether or not you allow it to disturb your peace is a decision that rests entirely in your hands. At the end of the day, the question is not whether they have changed. The question is whether you have changed. If you have, then their return will not feel like a crisis. It will feel like a test you are fully prepared to pass. This is the essence of emotional resilience. This is the foundation of true self-respect. And this is what it means to embody Stoicism in your relationships. 2. The cycle of validation. One of the most overlooked reasons why people come back after hurting you is their need for validation. At first, this might not seem obvious. You might assume they've returned because they regret their actions, because they miss you, or because they've suddenly realized your worth. But more often than not, their return has nothing to do with genuine remorse. It has everything to do with their own insecurities. And if you're not careful, you could get caught in an emotional cycle that only benefits them while draining you. Think about this. When they left, they likely felt a sense of control. Maybe they made the decision impulsively. Maybe they thought the grass was greener elsewhere, or maybe they simply took you for granted. But once you were gone, once they lost the attention, the love, and the emotional support you once provided, they started to feel the absence. That absence became uncomfortable. And for people who rely on external validation, that discomfort can become unbearable. You see, many people don't realize how much they depend on others to feel good about themselves until that validation is taken away. When they were with you, your affection, your presence, and your energy reassured them that they were wanted, needed, and important. But when they walked away, they unknowingly severed a crucial source of validation. And as time passed, they began to feel empty, insecure, doubtful. They started wondering, do I still matter to them? Could I still have them if I wanted? Am I as significant as I thought? That's when they come back. Not necessarily because they love you, but because they crave the validation that being wanted provides. They need to know that if they reached out, you would still be there, that you haven't truly moved on, that they still have access to your emotions. And if you're not aware of this pattern, you might mistake their return for something deeper than it actually is. You might think they've changed, that they're ready to make things right, that this time things will be different. But ask yourself, are they returning because they value you or because they need something from you? There's a huge difference. A person who truly values you returns with accountability, self-awareness, and a willingness to prove through actions, not just words, that they have changed. But someone who returns for validation, they don't come back to heal what they broke. They come back to reassure themselves that they can come back, that you will still answer, that they still hold a place in your heart, even after everything they've done. This is why the cycle of validation is so dangerous. It tricks you into believing in change that doesn't actually exist. It makes you feel seen, wanted, and hopeful, only to leave you empty all over again once their need for validation is satisfied. Because here's the harsh truth. If someone is coming back just for validation, once they get it, they will leave again. And each time they do, it chips away at your self-worth. If you've ever experienced this, you know exactly what it feels like. They return with the perfect words, just enough effort to rekindle your emotions, just enough attention to make you feel like maybe, just maybe, this time they mean it. But once they see that you still care, that you're still affected by them, that you're still emotionally available, they start pulling away again. They disappear. They act distant. They leave you confused, wondering what you did wrong. But the truth is, you did nothing wrong. Their return was never about you. It was about them. Stoicism teaches us to detach from external validation and cultivate inner peace that is not dependent on others. If you don't internalize this, you will always be vulnerable to people who use validation as a form of control. The moment someone senses that their presence dictates your emotions, they gain power over you. And when they know they can come and go as they please, without consequences, without real accountability, they will, again and again. So, what can you do? The first step is awareness. The moment you recognize the cycle, you strip it of its power. If someone from your past returns, ask yourself, what are they truly looking for? Do their actions align with real change, or do they just need reassurance that they can still affect you? Are they willing to do the work to rebuild trust, or do they just want to know they still have access to your emotions? Once you see their true motives, you'll be able to make decisions based on logic, not longing. The second step is setting boundaries. If you suspect someone is returning purely for validation, you don't owe them your time, your energy, or your attention. You don't need to entertain their words just because they appear remorseful. You don't need to prove anything to them, because the real power isn't in whether they still want you. The real power is in whether you still want them. And if you've grown beyond the version of yourself that once needed their validation, you'll realize that their return is nothing more than an opportunity to show yourself how much stronger you've become. People who play these games don't expect you to change. They expect you to respond the same way you always have. They expect you to give in, to engage, to prove that they still matter. But imagine their shock when they realize you no longer need their validation, that their return no longer affects you, that you have built a life, a mindset, and a sense of self-worth that exists independently of their presence. That is true freedom. So if you're watching this right now and you've ever experienced this cycle of validation, it's time to break it. It's time to reclaim your power. It's time to show yourself that you are the one in control of your emotions, not them. And if you agree, if you feel this message deeply, I want you to do something right now. Like this video and comment number 1 below to let me know that you're choosing yourself over empty validation, that you're stepping into the strongest version of yourself. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel for more insights on Stoicism and Stoic relationships so you can continue building the mindset that will protect your peace, no matter who tries to return. 3. Guilt and the desire for redemption. Guilt is one of the most powerful emotions that can drive a person to return after they've hurt you. At first glance, this might seem like a good thing. If someone feels guilty, doesn't that mean they've realized the harm they caused? Doesn't that mean they're seeking redemption, trying to make things right? The problem is that guilt does not always equal growth. Guilt can be a selfish emotion, one that motivates a person to ease their own discomfort rather than truly repair the damage they inflicted. And if you don't see this clearly, you might mistake their return for something deeper than it really is. When someone hurts you, they may not fully understand the consequences of their actions in the moment. Maybe they acted out of impulse. Maybe they thought you would always be there, no matter what. Maybe they convinced themselves that what they did wasn't that bad. But time has a way of revealing truths that people try to ignore. The absence of your presence forces them to sit with what they've done in a way that no conversation ever could. Suddenly, they realize the weight of their actions. They see how they affected you, how they lost someone who once cared for them, how their choices had lasting consequences. And for the first time, they feel something they don't know how to handle: regret. Regret is uncomfortable. It eats at a person, making them question their decisions. It forces them to confront the reality that they may have made a mistake they can't undo. But here's where things get complicated. Some people do not return because they truly want to fix what they broke. They return because they want to free themselves from the guilt that has been haunting them. They want to be forgiven so they can feel better, not necessarily because they have changed. And if you mistake their desire for redemption as a sign of true transformation, you might let them back in, only to realize that nothing is different. Think about it. Have you ever had someone hurt you, then come back with apologies that sound sincere, only to watch them repeat the same patterns later? This is why apologies born out of guilt are often self-serving. The person doesn't want to feel like the villain. They don't want to sit with the reality of what they did. So they come back, say all the right things, and hope you will absolve them so they can walk away feeling relieved, knowing that you no longer hold them accountable in your mind. But this kind of return does not serve you. It serves them. Stoicism teaches us to separate what is in our control from what is not. Their guilt is not your responsibility. Their regret is not something you need to fix. If someone feels guilty for hurting you, that is their burden to carry, not yours to relieve. Too often people assume that when someone apologizes, they must immediately accept it. But forgiveness is not about letting someone back into your life. It is about freeing yourself from the weight of resentment. You can forgive someone in your heart while still recognizing that their presence is not good for your peace. This is where many people struggle. The moment someone who hurt them returns with a remorseful tone, with messages filled with regret, with words like, "I never meant to hurt you," or "I think about what I did all the time," they feel a pull to respond. Maybe it's compassion, maybe it's unresolved feelings, maybe it's the belief that closure must come from the other person. But here's the truth. Closure does not require their return. Closure is a choice you make for yourself. It is realizing that you do not need someone else's apology to move forward. It is recognizing that their guilt is theirs to carry, not yours to fix. If someone truly wants redemption, they will show it through actions, not just words. They will not simply come back to confess their regret and expect you to absorb it for them. They will take real accountability. They will make the effort to repair what was broken, not just say they wish they had done things differently. And most importantly, they will respect your boundaries, understanding that true change is not about their need to be forgiven, but about your need to heal in the way that serves you best. Too many people believe that giving someone another chance is a sign of strength, that accepting an apology and letting them back in is proof of emotional maturity. But true strength is knowing when to say no. It is understanding that just because someone is sorry does not mean they deserve access to your heart again. It is knowing that some bridges should remain burned, not out of hatred, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. When someone returns out of guilt, pay attention to how they approach the conversation. Are they focused on you, on the pain they caused, on how they can repair the damage, on what they can do to earn back trust? Or are they focused on themselves, on how bad they feel, on how much they regret it, on how they just want things to go back to the way they were? If their return is centered around their own emotions rather than the harm they caused, that is a sign that their guilt is selfish. True redemption is not about relieving one's own guilt. It is about making amends in a way that prioritizes the other person's healing. And sometimes the only way to do that is to accept that their past actions have consequences. If you have healed, if you have moved forward, then you do not owe them the role of being their emotional savior. It is not your job to help them feel better about what they did. If they regret their actions, good, they should. That is how people learn. That is how they grow. But their growth is their journey, not yours to manage. At the end of the day, the question is not, do they regret what they did? The question is, does their return align with my peace? If the answer is no, then you owe it to yourself to keep moving forward. Your healing is not dependent on their guilt. Your closure is not dependent on their redemption. Your peace is yours to protect, and no one, not even someone who claims to have changed, should have the power to take that away from you. This is what it means to embody Stoicism in your relationships. To detach from the need for external validation, to separate emotions from logic, to prioritize inner peace over temporary comfort. People will return for many reasons, but the only one that truly matters is whether their presence contributes to your well-being or disrupts it. If someone's return is based on their own need to feel better, then they have not returned for you. They have returned for themselves, and you do not have to participate in their guilt. You do not have to be the place where they come to relieve their burden. You can let them carry it because it was never yours to hold in the first place. 4. Fear of losing you forever. One of the most powerful forces that can drive someone to return after hurting you is fear. The fear of losing you forever. At first, this might seem like love, like a sudden realization of your worth, like they finally understand what they had. But take a closer look, and you'll see something else, a deep, often unconscious panic at the idea that you are slipping away from their reach. And this fear isn't necessarily rooted in love or a true desire to repair the past. It's rooted in their own inability to accept loss. People don't always value what they have when it's in front of them. When they walked away, they may have thought they had options. Maybe they thought they could come back whenever they wanted. Maybe they assumed you would always be there, always waiting, always available. But time and distance have a way of making people see reality with clearer eyes. And when they finally realize that you are not waiting, that you are moving forward without them, that you are no longer under their emotional control, that's when the fear sets in. This fear manifests in many ways. Sometimes it's subtle. They suddenly start checking in, sending casual messages, finding reasons to be in your life again. Sometimes it's dramatic. They make grand gestures, pour out their feelings, say things like, "I can't imagine my life without you." But look beyond their words. What are their actions telling you? Are they returning because they have truly changed? Or are they returning because the idea of you being happy without them is unbearable to their ego? Fear is not love. Let me say that again. Fear is not love. Someone fearing the loss of you does not mean they are ready to treat you the way you deserve. It does not mean they have suddenly developed the emotional maturity to sustain a healthy relationship. It simply means they are uncomfortable with the idea of losing access to you. That's an important distinction to make, because if you mistake their fear for genuine love, you might open the door to someone who is only coming back to soothe their own insecurities, not because they are ready to be what you need. Ask yourself, are they returning because they are afraid of losing me, or because they are truly willing to do the work to keep me? There is a difference between fearing loss and truly valuing someone. Fear-driven actions are reactive. They come from a place of panic, from a need to re-establish control. But true value is demonstrated through consistency, effort, and respect. If someone only shows up when they think they're losing you, then their actions are about them, not you. Stoicism teaches us to detach from external influences, to recognize that our peace should not be dictated by someone else's emotional turbulence. If someone is returning purely out of fear, then their motivation is unstable. Today, they are afraid. Tomorrow, that fear might fade. And when it does, will they still be the person you need them to be? Or will they once again take you for granted, knowing that their fear can always be temporarily eased by running back into your life? Some people are driven by the fear of regret, but that regret is often about what they lost, not about what they did. There's a difference. Regret, that is, based on loss, is still self-centered. It is not rooted in true accountability or change. They may regret losing your love, your support, your presence, but do they regret how they treated you? Do they acknowledge the pain they caused? Have they taken steps to ensure they don't repeat the same behaviors? If not, their regret is nothing more than a reflection of their own suffering, not a genuine concern for yours. Fear-based returns often happen when they see you thriving without them. Maybe you've grown in ways they never expected. Maybe they see you happy, successful, or even moving on to someone else. And suddenly, the idea of being erased from your life becomes unbearable to them. But again, this is about them. It's about their discomfort, their ego, their inability to accept that they no longer have a place in your story. And if you let them back in because of their fear, you risk sacrificing your progress. You are not responsible for managing someone else's fear of loss. That is their burden to carry, not yours to fix. You do not owe someone access to your heart just because they are afraid of being without you. If they truly valued you, they would have shown it before they reached the point of fear. They would have chosen to nurture the connection rather than risk breaking it. They would not have needed to lose you to realize what you were worth. So if someone has returned to your life and you suspect that fear is their primary motivation, take a step back. Ask yourself, does their return align with my well-being? Are they willing to do the work to keep me, or are they just acting out of panic? Is this about their ego, or is this about true change? If their return is based on anything other than genuine love, accountability, and a clear demonstration of growth, then their presence in your life is not a gift, it is a test. And the strongest thing you can do is recognize it for what it is. If you've ever experienced this, if someone has come back into your life only when they thought they were losing you, I want you to take a stand today. Like this video and comment number 1 below if you are choosing your peace over someone else's fear. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel for more insights on Stoicism and Stoic relationships, so you can continue strengthening the mindset that keeps you grounded, no matter who tries to return. 5. How to respond when they come back. When someone who hurt you comes back, your first instinct might be to react emotionally. Maybe you feel a rush of relief, thinking that their return means they finally understand what they lost. Maybe you feel anger, remembering all the pain they caused and wondering why they think they can just walk back into your life. Or maybe you feel conflicted. Part of you wants to hear them out, while another part of you knows that letting them in again might be dangerous. This is where most people struggle, because emotions cloud judgment. But Stoicism teaches us something crucial. Your power lies in your response. You cannot control why they return. You cannot control what they say, but you can control how you respond. And that makes all the difference. The first thing you need to do when they come back is pause. Do not react immediately. Do not let emotions dictate your next move. Creating space between an event and your response is one of the most powerful habits you can develop. It allows you to think clearly, to see the situation for what it is, rather than what you wish it to be. People often make the mistake of assuming that because someone returns, it must mean something profound. But stop and ask yourself, does their return actually change anything? Have they done anything to prove they are different? Or are you simply being pulled back into a familiar cycle? Once you've created space, the next step is to assess their motives. Why are they coming back now? Is it because they genuinely regret their actions, or is it because they miss the validation you provided? Are they returning with a clear sense of accountability, or are they just hoping to be forgiven without putting in the work? Are they showing signs of real growth, or are they simply reacting to fear, guilt, or loneliness? The ability to question without attachment is a Stoic relationships principle that can save you from making choices that lead to more pain. Just because someone says they've changed does not mean they actually have. Look at actions, not words. Consistency, not temporary effort. The third step is to evaluate your emotional state. Have you truly healed from what happened, or does their return trigger old wounds? Are you considering letting them back in because it serves your peace, or because part of you is still attached to the past? Often, when someone who hurt us returns, we assume it is an opportunity to rewrite the past, to fix what was broken. But ask yourself, is this truly a second chance, or is it just another round of the same cycle? Sometimes people do change. Sometimes they return with genuine intentions. But even then, the question remains, do I want this in my life? Growth does not always mean revisiting old wounds. Sometimes true growth is realizing that you no longer need to reopen the door that was closed for a reason. Boundaries are your greatest tool when someone returns. Without them, you leave yourself open to manipulation, confusion, and emotional turmoil. A boundary does not have to be cruel or dramatic. It is simply a clear, firm decision about what you will and will not accept. If you choose to engage with them, make your boundaries known. If they push against them, that is a sign that they have not changed. True respect means honoring another person's boundaries without resistance. If they argue, if they try to make you feel guilty, if they make excuses for their past behavior, that is not growth. That is someone trying to negotiate their way back into your life without actually earning that place. One of the hardest things to accept is that closure is not something another person gives you. It is something you give yourself. Many people allow someone back into their life because they feel they need closure, a final conversation, an explanation. But the truth is, closure is not about what they say. It is about what you decide. If someone returns with words but no real action, with apologies but no real change, then your closure comes from understanding that you do not need to reopen a wound just because someone else finally decided they wanted to talk about it. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that kindness means giving someone another chance. But true kindness is recognizing what is best for you. You do not have to be cruel to be firm. You do not have to hate them to decide that they no longer belong in your life. The most powerful decision you can make is the one that prioritizes your peace over temporary emotions. If someone returns and their presence threatens your peace more than it brings you clarity, then you already have your answer. At the end of the day, the real question is not why they came back, but what you're going to do about it. You have the choice. You have the power, and your response is what determines whether you remain stuck in the past or move forward with wisdom and strength. This is what Stoicism teaches us: to control what we can, to let go of what we cannot, and to always choose the path that protects our inner peace above all else. 6. The power of emotional detachment. One of the greatest strengths you can develop when someone who hurt you returns is emotional detachment. Not detachment in the sense of coldness or indifference, but in the sense of control, the ability to separate your emotions from the external actions of others. The ability to remain calm, clear-headed, and unwavering in your peace no matter what they do. This is what Stoicism teaches us, that true power is not found in controlling others, but in mastering ourselves. When you develop emotional detachment, you stop allowing people to dictate your happiness. You stop reacting impulsively to their return. You stop letting their words or presence shake the foundation of your inner peace. Most people believe that if someone they cared about returns, they must engage, they must listen, they must consider, they must entertain the possibility of reconciliation. But this is an illusion. Just because someone reappears in your life does not mean they deserve your energy. Just because they regret their past actions does not mean they are entitled to a response. Detachment means understanding that you do not owe anyone access to your heart simply because they now feel ready to revisit the past. When someone who hurt you comes back, they often expect a reaction. Maybe they expect anger. Maybe they expect forgiveness. Maybe they expect you to still care as deeply as you once did. But what they do not expect is detachment. They do not expect you to be unshaken. They do not expect you to look at them and see just another person from your past, no longer holding power over your emotions. And when you reach this level of emotional strength, you realize that their return is not nearly as significant as it once seemed. It is just another moment, another external event, something that exists outside of your control, and therefore something that does not require your emotional investment. Emotional detachment does not mean suppressing your feelings. It does not mean pretending you don't care. It means recognizing that caring does not have to equal attachment, that love does not have to mean re-entry, that forgiveness does not have to mean allowing someone back into your life. Detachment means making decisions from a place of clarity rather than emotion. It means looking at the situation logically and asking yourself, does this add peace to my life or does it disrupt it? Am I considering this person's return because I truly want them in my life, or because I feel obligated to respond? Will engaging with them serve my well-being, or will it pull me back into old emotional cycles? When you are emotionally detached, you stop feeling the need to prove anything. You do not need to prove that you have moved on. You do not need to prove that you are unaffected. You do not need to prove that you are kind, forgiving, or mature by giving them another chance. You simply exist in a state of peace, knowing that your happiness does not rely on their presence. This is what separates those who are truly healed from those who are still seeking validation. A person who is still emotionally entangled will seek closure, explanations, reassurance. A person who has mastered detachment will simply recognize that the past no longer has control over them. People return for many reasons, but your reaction to their return is what defines you. Do you let their presence disrupt your peace? Do you let old emotions take over your judgment? Or do you remain steady, grounded, and unshaken? The choice is yours. And the moment you realize that you do not have to engage, that you do not have to explain yourself, that you do not have to invite someone back into your life just because they now regret their past actions, that is the moment you reclaim your power. At the end of the day, emotional detachment is not about distancing yourself from love. It is about distancing yourself from emotional dependence. It's about understanding that no person should have the power to dictate your inner world. It is about realizing that true peace comes from within, not from the actions of others. And if you have reached this level of strength, you will see the return for what it truly is, just another moment, another test, another opportunity to prove to yourself that you are no longer ruled by the past. If you have ever struggled with detachment, if you have ever found yourself questioning what to do when someone from your past returns, let this be your answer. Like this video and comment number 1 below if you are choosing peace over attachment. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel for more insights on Stoicism and Stoic relationships, so you can continue strengthening the mindset that keeps you in control of your emotions, no matter who comes and goes from your life. 7. The test of character. When someone who hurt you returns, it is not just a test of their intentions, it is a test of your character. How you respond in this moment will reveal how much you have grown, how well you have mastered your emotions, and whether you are truly in control of your own peace. Many people believe that the real question is whether the person who left has changed, whether they are sincere, whether they deserve another chance. But the truth is, this moment is about you. It is about whether you will react from old wounds or respond from a place of wisdom. It is about whether you have truly detached from what is outside of your control. Stoicism teaches us that external events do not define us. Our response to them does. If someone who hurt you returns, that is simply an external event. It does not inherently mean anything unless you assign meaning to it. But this is where people often fall into the trap of emotional reactivity. They see the person's return as a symbol, as a sign, as something significant, when in reality it is just another moment. Your ability to remain grounded in your own peace, unaffected by whether they come or go, is the real test. This is where emotional strength is revealed. A person who has not yet mastered themselves will feel an immediate pull when someone from the past reappears. Maybe it is the need for validation, the lingering hope that things could be different, or the temptation to revisit what once was. But a person who has cultivated true inner peace does not waver. They do not allow nostalgia to cloud their judgment. They do not mistake someone's return for something more meaningful than it is. They recognize that true change is proven through consistent action, not through words spoken in a moment of regret. Many people struggle with the idea of detachment because they think it means becoming cold or unfeeling. But that is not what Stoicism teaches. Detachment does not mean indifference to people. It means indifference to outcomes. It means letting go of the need to control what happens next. It means refusing to let someone's return shake the foundation of the peace you have built. This is where real strength lies, the ability to face a situation that once would have triggered an emotional reaction and instead respond with clarity, calmness, and unwavering self-respect. Some people return because they assume you are the same person they left. They assume you still feel the same way, that you will still react the same way, that you will still be just as emotionally invested as before. But imagine their shock when they realize you have changed, that their presence does not shake you, that their words do not influence you, that you do not seek their approval, their validation, or their affection anymore. That is power. That is growth. That is what it means to truly pass the test. This moment is about recognizing how far you have come. Do you still need their closure? Do you still crave their presence? Do you still feel like your happiness depends on their actions? Or have you reached a place where you understand that your peace is entirely within your own control? If you have, then their return is not an emotional crisis. It is simply proof that you have risen above the version of yourself that once would have been affected. You are no longer playing the same game. You are no longer operating from the same level of attachment. You are no longer dependent on whether someone stays or leaves. And when you reach this point, you realize that the greatest victory is not in getting them back. It is in not needing them back at all. It is in seeing their return as nothing more than another moment in time, another event in life, one that holds no real power over you unless you allow it to. This is what it means to embody true strength. To no longer be controlled by the past. To no longer allow the emotions of others to dictate your peace. To no longer see someone's return as a reflection of your worth, but simply as a moment that you have the power to navigate with wisdom. This is the final test. And when you pass it, you realize that their return was never about them. It was always about you. It was always about proving to yourself that you are free, and that, above all else, is what makes you untouchable. When someone who hurt you returns, it is easy to get caught up in emotions, in memories, in the idea that this moment is a turning point. But the truth is, their return is not what defines you. Your response does. You have now seen the reasons why they come back, whether it is guilt, fear, validation, or a test of your character. But the real question is not about them, it is about you. Will you react impulsively, or will you respond with wisdom? Will you let old emotions dictate your decisions, or will you remain in control of your peace? The strongest thing you can do is recognize that their return does not change your worth. It does not rewrite the past. It does not erase the pain they caused. What it does is give you an opportunity to choose yourself over an emotional cycle, to trust your growth, to stand firm in your self-respect. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control whether people come or go, but we can control how much access they have to our emotions. True power is not in getting them back. It is in realizing you no longer need them back. So the next time someone from your past reappears, pause, reflect. Ask yourself if their presence aligns with the peace you have built, and if the answer is no, then walk away with strength, knowing that the person you have become does not belong in the same cycle you left behind. If this message resonates with you, make sure to subscribe for more insights on Stoicism and Stoic relationships, so you can continue to build the mindset that protects your peace, no matter who tries to return. Thank you for watching, and remember, your peace is your power.